I'm Candy and I'm here to talk to you about inclusive leadership. So, before we go, a little bit about me. I'm head of content design at Bumble. Before that, I was a content design manager and strategist at Nationwide Building Society. When I'm not doing content things, you might find me writing books or hanging out with my crystals and houseplants, or tweeting. So, why am I here? Good question. Am I an HR professional? No, I'm not. But I do have a bit of skin in the game when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So, as well as all of the things I just told you about my job and my role, I am a three quarters Nigerian, one quarter Sierra Leonean woman. I am also a care leaver who grew up in foster care and left school when I was 15 and was told that I could have been an A to C student, but I'd be lucky to get D's and E's if I continued not to go to school because I was being quite seriously bullied, which was very racially aggravated. Moreover than that, I am visually impaired, so I have quite a serious visual impairment in my left eye, which means that that picture is probably, yeah, slightly better than what it looks like between both of my eyes. And I'm neurodivergent. Why am I giving you a little snapshot about my life? Because we all have aspects of our identity that we can't separate from work. We don't wake up as one person, walk to another room, and then we're suddenly a different person. We have these intrinsic aspects of who we are that naturally show up in the workplace. So it's really important because of that that we're making sure our workplaces are always as inclusive as possible. So, what am I here to do today? So, I'm here to share with you some simple ways to help you improve your team and organisation's diversity and inclusion efforts. Kind of. Here's the thing with diversity and inclusion, and goodness knows we've heard the phrase a lot and many, many acronyms around it. But improving diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't a quick fix because the problem is a huge one. So, one disclaimer before I start is I am going to keep it real with you. Um, it's all I know how to do, and I think this is a very real topic, so it warrants a real conversation. So, where are we? Well, our customers are diverse and inclusive, whether we like it or not. They come from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all socioeconomic statuses, all genders, ethnicities, a wide range of disabilities and illnesses. But more often than not, our teams look a lot like this. A lot of homogeneity with, a little bit of diversity thrown in. And let me be clear, if there was ever going to be an industry where we need inclusion, we need diverse minds, backgrounds, it's one where we're creating things for such a wide variety of humans. We talk a lot about designing for humans, human experiences, but humans come from all walks of life, come from all identities. So it's really critical in our work that we're reminded of that constantly. So, as I mentioned, the scale of the problem is pretty significant. So, statistically, black women are paid an average of 63% less than white men. 1 in 8 trans employees have been physically attacked by customers or colleagues in the last year. 44 workers aged 50 plus have experienced age discrimination at work. And 70% of Muslims have experienced religion-based prejudice. And that is very, very much just the tip of the iceberg. We could do a whole conference on the statistical issues that we have when it comes to diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So we have a very, very real problem. And aligned with that problem are a number of myths that we see again and again. So I hear it's a pipeline problem, yet the pipeline has never been more diverse. We hear it's the responsibility of HR and employee networks. All of us here as leaders is absolutely our responsibility and something we have to take accountability for. I have to give the best person the job, which is my least favourite, because the inference there is that the best person wouldn't be someone who is black, disabled, trans, and that's not the case. That is our biases coming through and talking. And diversity is costly. It's not costly, it's not a project, it's something that we can all be making small steps towards. So just like Lauren Ipson, all of that stuff, this needs to change. And the good news is we have a huge opportunity to be a part of that change. So for the sake of this whistle stop tour, we're going to look at 3 different aspects. And quite often we see that diversity and inclusion is very much focused on the attraction and recruiting. So bringing people into the organisation, that's important, yes, but it's not the be all and end all. So we're going to look a little bit at that, but we're also going to look at developing and supporting, and critically, inclusion and belonging. So helping people to feel safe, seen, and show up as themselves. So let's go. So firstly, attracting and recruiting. I'm going to take you through some tips, tricks, considerations as you go through the end-to-end process. So first things first, we're all content people, which gives us a great advantage for us to really put some of that meaningful focus and human-centered inclusivity into our job ads. Question everything you have in your job ad. Sure, it's been kicking around a while, but does it really cover what you need for the role? Does someone really need a degree to do that job? How will they use it? Why do they need it? How inclusive is your own language in the job ad? Challenging, fast-paced. We all know the kind of inferences and connotations that they give off, and they can be very off-putting to other people. Expand your networks. So I hear time and time again, I hear a lot that we're not getting the candidates through. If you're only advertising on your careers website, you're unlikely to get a diverse pool of candidates applying. There are so many great places you can advertise. Black girls in tech, disability, network, so many opportunities to widen the reach of your adverts. Screening and reviewing. This comes up a lot, the portfolio game. But even the notion of the expectation for portfolio can conjure up, oh, I need to have a portfolio website, it needs to be perfectly polished, which, could be timely and costly. So one thing you can try is, would examples of work be sufficient? Does it have to be a portfolio website? Be clear on that. CVs, another thing that has long been tested is anonymising the names on CVs. Definitely look into that as something you could try. Being crystal clear on your criteria. Before you even start looking at CVs, be really clear on what you're looking for. What's the criteria? And keep this as close as possible to the job ad expectations. Another one, I know how it is, people might reach out to you about the role, they're really excited, they want to hear more. But remember, those initial chats can sometimes bring in bias and unfair advantage. So if you're going to have them, keep them very factual, so giving an overview of the role, but not necessarily part of the assessment criteria. That's really important. Interviewing and assessing. So who is on your interview panel? Have a look at that. Make sure it's as non-homogenous as possible. Who said that it has to be all leaders interviewing? Could you get people involved, content designers on the team? Have a diverse mix of skills, levels, ethnicities, genders, etc. Another critical one to help mitigate bias is develop a clear scoring criteria. I cannot stress this enough. Be really clear for all interviewers on what you're marking people against. That helps to avoid subjectivity. The next point, culture fit. What does that even mean? Content design yourself. What do you mean by culture fit? Break that down before you consider it. If people make comments like, I just didn't like her, or I didn't get the vibe, really ask them, what do they mean by that? What part of the job ad do you not think they wouldn't, they're not meeting? Let's be really clear and objective in this so we can help to break down that subjectivity, which is often laden with bias. Make people feel comfortable. So always offer reasonable adjustments. It's a two-way process. People are interviewing you, wanting to know how inclusive you are, as well as vice versa. A really important one, negotiating and landing on a salary. Goodness knows the gender and ethnicity pay gap is a problem. So before you start, be crystal clear on your salary brands. Make sure you have a clear salary range for the role and advertise this as much as you can. I know it's not always easy, but keep pushing HR so you can get that transparency. Finally, pay people their worth. And I cannot stress this enough. Never undercut people for negotiation. There's a common misconception, it's not on people to negotiate the salary for them. It is on you as a leader to pay people their worth, to have clear salary bands, to make sure your team are paid fairly. These points are so critical because every time we offer someone a salary, we can contribute to the gender and ethnicity pay gap, or we can support and help rebalance it. So really be mindful of what people across your team are paid, what you're offering people. Developing and supporting. So get clear on your career ladder. This is really important. A lot of the reasons we see inequality in leadership is because promotions and progressions aren't clear. So one thing I can definitely advise as a leader is be really clear on your career ladder. People need to know where they are, what it takes them to get to the next step. Promotion should never be based on gut feel. Base your crystal choices on gut feel, your house plants, but not whether people get promoted or not. A career ladder can really help to remove that bias and empower people to take control of their own progression. And you can cover things like behaviour, skills, and it can really help you to work through any development needs needed. On the right is a career development map that I work through with some of the team. So looking at the strengths that they've got already, any gaps, and how we're going to work through those. Be their cheerleader. So, obviously, little Harry Potter gift. Lots of folks from marginalised communities may not have had someone in their corner before. My family were very working class. I wasn't used to this kind of corporate environment world. So it was only when I had the occasional leader that believed in me that I'd had that self belief. So just remember that you can be people's cheerleader and you might be doing things that they haven't had before in terms of building their confidence. A lack of confidence in someone does not equate to a lack of capability. So never mistake the loudest person in the loudest voice in the room for the most qualified. The beauty of this is that when your team feels heard, when they feel seen and supported, great things can happen. Okay. Sponsorship versus mentoring. This is really important. A good friend of mine, Jordan Craig from Twitter, said that Black women are over mentored and under sponsored. And I think that this goes for a lot of folks from marginalised communities. But what do we mean by mentoring and sponsoring? So mentors advise and guide. They help people navigate their careers. They share knowledge and experience. Sponsors advocate and act. They help unlock opportunities for people. They might help get people promoted. They might help people find great opportunities for them to showcase their skills. They will advocate for you when you're not in the room. And that is a beautiful power that we all have as leaders. We can all be people's sponsors and help them to really get to where they need to be, which is a great, great opportunity. So examples of sponsoring, it might be helping to find people projects that really help them to demonstrate their senior level experience, providing internships, speaking about people's great work in leadership meetings. There's so many opportunities. Why Rihanna? Because it's Rihanna. No, I'm joking. Rihanna is a great example of a sponsor, in my opinion. Everything that she has done for the community, giving people opportunities that they may not have had access to before. She's a beautiful example of a really wonderful sponsor. So be more Rihanna. Inclusion and belonging, a really important and often overlooked area. So before we go into this one, I just wanted to take a step back because it's such an important topic. So this old picture is a picture of my old school. And on the surface, it looks perfectly pleasant. But it was a place that I spent some of the worst years of my life because I felt like I never ever belonged. I grew up in quite a white area, so from everything from my hair to my voice, it became increasingly clear how different I was. And it started to impact my work and my skills and my capability, my ability to show up and feel confident in what I did. Some horrible things happened there, and it wasn't always overt racism, although there was a lot of that. But why I'm saying this is because I feel like if people don't feel a sense of belonging, it can really impact their performance and their ability to do their work well. You can't separate who you are when you enter one door and close another. So we really have to help people feel like they belong. Being the only, and I know this 'cause I reflect on it a lot, but being the only black person per se, or being the only trans person, or being the only disabled or neurodiverse person is hard. You feel different a lot of the time. So it is on us as leaders, especially leaders from homogenous backgrounds, to help make sure our workplaces aren't just created with people like us, but they're inclusive of diverse perspectives, voices, backgrounds. How can you do this? There's some simple ways, and the simple things make a lot of difference. So include everyone's voice. It's your job to make sure everyone's voice is heard, not just the loudest one. And I know because I can be a bit of a gob. I don't want to swear, but yeah. So use the hands up function in meetings. That can really help to avoid, over talking in the same voices again and again. Make your one-to-ones 80-20. So with 80% of your team member talking and 20% of you. Try having workshops as well as meetings to give people more ways to share. Not everyone's going to feel comfortable talking up all the time. And work with your team to understand their preferred communication and feedback styles. Don't be that person that is just dropping into Slack with feedback out of context. Lead with questions, seek to understand before you dictate. Foster a trauma-informed workplace. You might have heard of this a lot, but it's another topic close to my heart. So trauma is much more than the traditional image that we've been sold, right? So we have probably all experienced small T and a lot of big T trauma potentially. The pandemic is one of those traumas, absolutely, which is how I know that pretty much everyone here has experienced trauma. So it's really important that our workplaces are trauma informed and are supporting people to come out of that fight or flight mode. And there's some ways that we can do this. So Mind's Wellness Action Plan is very good for helping people identify triggers and ways that they can be supported. Another thing is really look at people as people. Your team are not resources that are there to get S done for you. They are humans that are there working hard 5 or less days a week. Support them as such. Real humans, real emotions. Role model good behaviours. So take your PTO, even if you're just going to sit in the next room. Watch, I don't know, Netflix. I mean, I do know, I have endless series recommendations, but that's another story. Take your lunch, the little things matters. If you can, if you're looking for a great resource on this, Vivian Costello's Humanity Centres is incredible, incredibly powerful. So check your privilege and widen your horizons. Despite what we might have kind of feel like, privilege and bias aren't dirty words. They're something that we all have. But striving to understand different people's backgrounds, perspectives is so important to help us check and improve on our biases. A really good starting point for doing this can be remembering it's not all about you. Whatever your experience is, I'm sure that in all of our life we have felt left out, misheard, not welcomed. But if someone talks to you about their own unique lived experience, it's not the time to, play top trumps. It's not the time to offload yours. Listen. Listening is such an important first step to us really, really breaking down our biases and privilege. Do more to understand oppression and systematic prejudice. Like, these are systems level issues that we can all help to improve, but understand how ingrained these are in our systems, right? In the words of Lizzo, there are books and there is Google. It is not on Black people to educate you about race, disabled people to educate you on disability. It's on each of us. Finally, support your employee networks group. Employee networks and group often over relied upon and under supported. If you have them, see what you can do to help and support. Sponsor them, advocate for them. If you don't have them, think about whether you could set them up. I was fortunate enough to be part of our race and ethnicity network group during George Floyd's murder, and yeah, it saved my soul in many ways. So really, really encourage everyone to look into their employee network groups and what can be done to support them. Last but not least, normalize having zero tolerance. So what I hear a lot is that we've got really strong values, we're inclusive in our values. Your values mean absolutely nothing if you don't have guardrails in place to safeguard and protect people. So the question I want everyone to ask themselves is, if someone came to you tomorrow to report an incident that was transphobic, racist, ableist, etc., how would you deal with that? Do you know your grievance policies? Do you know how to support people through that? If not, that is an urgent matter that needs to be worked on, because having strong values and intentions is nowhere near enough. Remember, this is people's lived experience. So if someone reports something vulnerable to you, treat it with care and caution. And a final point is, in most places, these kind of prejudice against people's identity is illegal. This is not a debate topic. This is not something to trade around leadership boardrooms on what to do. These are very, very, very serious points which need to be treated as such. Whew. And breathe. So I appreciate that was a lot to take in. And diversity and inclusion isn't something we'll solve in 20 minutes because it's centuries in the making. But we do all have the power to make a difference. So here's some things that I would love for us to think upon as we go forward. So firstly, start small. I know it can seem overwhelming, I know it can seem a lot, but you've got to start somewhere, and those small steps can make a huge difference. We've seen it happen time and time again. One thing can snowball, but it's about making that start. So take one thing that we've discussed from each area and think about how you can apply it today. Secondly, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This isn't an easy topic. I'm not going to pretend that to you, but it is a critical one. So our uncomfortableness shouldn't slow down our progress. 3, as we've discussed, remember you have more power than you think. Not having the power is what they want us to think, but as leaders, everyone here, or aspiring leaders, we have huge amounts of power to impact this. And finally, acknowledge that it's an iterative process. It's not a sprint. It's not a problem. We're not going to change it overnight, but we can embed it as part of our day to day and chip away at it. And that's what matters. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to dedicate this talk to anyone who has ever felt other, less than, excluded, or not heard because of who they are. You matter, your voice matters 100%, and let us be part of the change. Let us live to see the change.